4 compass. The format we're using today is called a 4 compass points. So what we have is we have 4 questions, and as panelists, we'll be answering these, but we will be keeping our eye on chat. Feel free to go, on chat. If you are so moved by what we're saying or disagree with us so much, we're perfectly fine if you want to come on mic. Okay, we're perfectly fine. We are veterans of virtual worlds, and we know how to deal with griefers and hecklers. Okay, we can do it. So, and people who disagree with us. In fact, we met me, Chris, and Jerry. We met Jerry at a conference in a virtual world, and I think you were like half heckling us and half agreeing with us.
Just a little bit. I was ambivalent.
Yeah. we were on a panel, and there was this audience member who was just, and that's Jerry. So we'll go. So welcome everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. We don't have a lot of slides. What we have a lot of is discussion. So we'll go ahead and get started. A version of this was presented at the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education conference last year. A version of this was presented, but since it was in the metaverse, we were, as avatars, we were sitting on an asteroid, and then at the end of the session, I wasn't supposed to, but I shot off missiles at the end of the session.
That was bad.
Yeah,
that was very naughty.
Yeah, but we'd like to have this discussion with you, and it does feed into our 4 p.m. session on questioning the paradigms. So we'll go ahead and get started. First, we'll get started with is like the intro. We'll just say who we are. And I'm Kay Novak. I'm an educator. I'm a learning and a game designer. I'm a doctoral student. I'm somebody who thinks the metaverse and broadly technology and AI could make education much better. And I mean way better than our students sitting in factory rows that look like a manufacturer floor, yeah. And us not using publisher textbooks that are all our classes are tied to. And I have to say, there's inferior open educational resources and zero-cost courses out there, and we could do much better than we do now. So that's my intro. So Jerry, you're up.
Okay, my name is Jerry, and for the purposes of our encounter today, our discourse, please just consider me just another internet rando. Yeah, if you're charitable, maybe a colleague in our society together, trying just to live the life of Riley as much as I can off the dead labor I accrued over my my unfortunately misspent youth and young adulthood, jobbing and wage slaving as a modestly successful member and productive, don't forget productive member of our neoliberal status quo order. If you'd like to check out the main character I rolled and that I play in our little neoliberal RPG, you can check it out at that very famous neoliberal avatar repository showroom, LinkedIn, and I would invite you to do so because there's lots of great characters rolling, I think. Chris?
Sure. My name is Chris Luchs. I am the newly minted Dean of Business and Manufacturing at Community College of Denver. I'm also a doctoral student at Old Dominion, currently ABD in my community college leadership program. Most of you know me from my work in the system. I've been in the Colorado Community College system for over 19 years. and I've been teaching accounting, education, multimedia graphic design. I've done a lot of presentations. I think most of the people here in this room have been to data justice and data governance, community college leadership, and educational policy, among other things like game-based learning and having lots of fun. So thank you all for coming. Yeah.
System, yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
you
pretty
check your
much.
baseline.
Pretty much, I think I'll be providing the baseline review, so to speak. So next up, we'll go into some terminology and talk about some of the key terms, just so that we're all on the same page. And we'll go take it away with Kay first.
Okay, I'm talking about the metaverse, and the metaverse had hype like December of 21, like ChatGPT had December 22.
Mhm.
But it didn't become quite as popular. But at least for the definition in the metaverse is we're working on that. The term metaverse was first used by Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash. And Snow Crash is considered by many to be one of the seminal books that created the cyberpunk genre of literature. So Snow Crash, this book, and the concept of the metaverse inspired many of today's virtual worlds, augmented reality, virtual reality apps, and it gave us a context of how we look at immersive online environments, and also how our physical and virtual identities could be managed, merged, and manipulated. Now, the thing about it is, metaverse for the last year until ChatGPT showed up was the buzzword. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg changed Facebook to be Meta. Well, he's backing away from that, but still, if you listen to something like the Bloomberg News, you'll hear them talking about things like Decentraland and high prices for virtual real estate and Web 3.0 and Web 3.0, and then they'll be talking about that in the metaverse, the blockchain is going to be the plumbing of the metaverse. And you'll see things like a Wells Fargo white paper out there on how the metaverse could be generating $1 trillion in annual revenue. So for us as educators, we've been in the metaverse a lot. You'll see the pictures here, like Second Life. Minecraft is like 12 years ago when it was all the rage in K through 12. And then the K through 12 students are like, oh, I don't like Minecraft. That's for kids now. and so it changes. But the metaverse is really a social virtual world gaming kind of space. So that's what we mean when we say the metaverse. Jerry, you're up with
I am.
neoliberalism.
Okay. So just to keep it brief, and please note the image here that Chris so creatively came up with for neoliberalism, which is the invisible hand. You'll note there on the slide. But since the focus of our conversation really isn't a deep dive and a full exploration of what neoliberalism means, we'll just start with the baseline, right? Baseline definition as a starting point for our conversation and our talk today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to leave in the full range of meanings, that we're going to find in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Because all these meanings touch upon, I think, associations that people have that encompass this, this neoliberal thing that we're kind of talking about more strictly from a techno societal economic standpoint. Okay, but all these associations are there, lurking in the background. So liberalism is one, the quality or state of being a liberal. Okay, seems pretty straightforward there. Often capitalized, it's a movement in modern Protestantism, emphasizing intellectual liberty and the spiritual and ethical content of Christianity. That's 2A. 2B, it is also a theory in economics emphasizing individual freedom from restraint, usually based on free competition, the self-regulating market, and the gold standard. Haven't been there in a while. C, it is also a political philosophy based on the belief in progress, the essential goodness of the human race, and the autonomy of the individual and standing, or the protection of political and civil liberties specifically. It's such a philosophy that considers government as a crucial instrument for the amelioration of social inequities, such as those involving race, gender, or class. Capitalized, it represents the principles and policies of a liberal. So that is our nutshell starting point baseline for this notion of liberalism. So what is a neoliberal? It's a liberal who de-emphasizes these traditional doctrines. What? In order to seek progress by more pragmatic methods. So there we are. Liberalism and neoliberalism nutshelled for our conversation today. Think about it.
Thank you.
Chris?
Sure. So next up is surveillance capitalism. So this really sort of this terminology rose to fame with Zuboff's book, looking at and documenting a wide variety of practices that were going on, primarily by social media companies, as well as other internet companies. And really what this is that the human experience on these platforms that can be anything that can be tracked, measured, captured, analyzed, suck data out of. This is all fair game for the platforms in which you engage. And so that what happens is that becomes this free raw material, which then can be constructed in a wide variety of statistical manipulations to be behavioral data. So we go ahead when that's quantitative and qualitative, being analyzed, weighed and measured, chunked out, pushed out. Basically that becomes the product. And there's an old adage that if anything that's free that you get, that means you're the product. So they're selling you and they're selling your data. So those are things that you're seeing. So you see this with like influencers and people being very focused on how many followers they have. What is there, how many eyeballs visit their website, things like that. That's really sort of what you're seeing. You're seeing all this demographic and market research information being pulled and used to sell product or to become a spokesperson to feature products and get paid to do that if you're an influencer. So the thing is that all of the data, all of the product, if you will, or service improvement, and everything is considered as behavioral, proprietary behavioral surplus. I love that terminology. That's interesting terminology to look at that.
Even
Then it's going ahead. Yeah. And then we feed all of this stuff into the advanced manufacturing processes known as machine intelligence. And then it's fabricated into prediction products and anticipate what you do. The idea is that there's this behavioral futures market where people's future, based on all these predictive analytics, are bought and sold by companies that want to sell and tailor products and services to you, the customer, based on which category that you fall into. It sounds like a wonderful future, doesn't it? Where basically you're going through it. One of the things you see with surveillance capitalism is majority of this is all passively collected. So most users are totally unaware that this data is being collected and it's being sold and it's being used. And the thing, exactly, Greg, I totally agree. It's a very,
so big.
it is a dissertation. I mean, it is very, very long. It's super well documented, tons of resources in there. Definitely a great reference book to have. But that's really sort of the idea of surveillance capitalism, is that you started seeing things where, like, the big scandal was Cambridge Analytica, when it came to politics and looking at that, where Facebook got into a little bit of trouble. Sorry, I mean Meta got in a little bit of trouble for selling their data. So these are all things that you're seeing. And one of the big things about big data is the more data you collect on a group, the more transparent the behavioral processes or behavioral actions it becomes. So which makes sense. The more you know about a group, the better you are able to predict their behavior. And so this is data collection on a massive scale. And these are databases being merged. And these are things that people are leveraging and selling to third parties. It's one of the reasons why most people are now taking a second look at the terms of service. And I'm sure some of you in here may have dropped out of certain social media platforms or other platforms because of not wanting your data to be in the pool.
Chris, just stay there for a second, because I'm just going to bring up a couple educational points as questions for you. Like, Chris, when your students are using, like, say, Lumen Learning, can you discuss one of the first things they have to do when they log into Lumen Learning for the first time?
Sure. The first thing you do whenever you log into Lumen Learning is you agree to their terms of service. One of the big things about the terms of service is, number one, you automatically agree by accepting this and so this is what you have to do before you can even access any of their material, is that you agree to be a research subject. And a lot of our students do not know what being a research subject means. And so they just click accept.
And then the other question, and this is for anybody who might have any learning management administration experience here. I was just going to ask, like, a little thing like, oh, hey, when the LMSs collect all the data from how we as learning designers are in there, how instructors are in there, and then how students are in there. When they collect that data, do they just freely give it back to us, or?
No, they very helpfully charge a fee for service to go ahead and do that, unless you negotiate, unless you're aware enough to negotiate getting your own data back from them. And then they share it to you in a format that is typically an interesting .csv file that is unopenable by most desktops that are on the campus. So usually what you end up doing is uploading into a data warehouse, which of course your LMS service provider is happy to provide you with a data warehousing service if you see fit. Then they can charge you for the storage of your data.
So we're seeing something there. And then here's my last question for you concerning this whole surveillance capitalism system. Was there something that happened during the Obama administration that made all of this possible for us in education?
Yes, there was. There was a edit to FERPA. And what it was an expansion of who is an approved third-party user. When it comes to acceptable and approved and vetted companies, it was opened up to allow colleges to work with companies to create learner analytics, so we could better serve our students, and we can help them and help predict who needs more support and all those other wonderful positives of what happens whenever if we use data correctly. And of course, ethically is another term that we like to throw in there as well.
Okay, so this is kind of like setting the table for everybody. Now we'll go over our 4.
No, Candace, they can't. It's the way they have to access it's part of the terms of service. They have to access it, and then they also have to pay the $25 to access the quizzes and other pieces. So they do still need to check off on that. There's not an opt-out, which I found interesting. At least not in the latest version I saw.
So what we'll go to now is our 4 compass point questions, and we don't have a lot of slides. Like I said, this is more discussion, and you can jump in pretty much as you want. What we have this last one. Does anybody need the definition of this? Okay. Does anybody need us to go in and to define this, or you can take
No.
just
Yeah, it just sound off. Well, like who knows what it means?
Yeah, I'll watch Wally. Yeah.
yeah.
I was, originally whenever I created a slide, I was like going like, I actually had some cows here because I grew up on a farm, a beef ranch, and AI means something totally different than what we're doing here in the business concept. So yes,
For our ag people out there.
yeah, for the ag people out there will be like, well, which one?
Which one? You're going to have to be more specific.
All right.
Okay, so
Yeah, I agree, Eric. It's evolving. It's an evolving definition.
okay, so we'll get to these compass point questions, and so the first one, and I'll ask it because I'm not the first person answering it. So the compass point, it goes first with east. So the E for excited. Like, what would be the best social imaginary of ethics and justice concerning AI and the metaverse? So Chris, you go first. What would think would be the best?
For me, like I said, it's funny. These questions. This question is always the aspirational question.
Yeah.
What is the best? What is the best thing? What is the perfect ideal? And for me, really, it is leveraging these technologies, the metaverses, the AIs that are out there, to actually increase the quality of life for our students, at least in an educational context. Outside of education, it's increased everyone's quality of life. But the really big thing I see is that I would like to have the full control over the various assets, identity, and data that we have, and also the freedom to move between platforms without having to constantly log in or create new accounts, create new passwords, being able to move around. Again, we would have to have a common currency or a common exchange rate where you could buy currencies from one virtual world, then exchange it for other currency that's used in another virtual world, or if they all use Dogecoins or whatever, they could go ahead and you'd use cryptocurrency. Who knows? But like, that's one of the big things now, is like they're excited about metaverses because maybe they could use a common cryptocurrency to solve all of these transactional issues. Yes, Shibu, Shibis for the win. But the thing is that the other piece to it is really looking at a greater liquidity. Was really what a lot of these worlds would need. So that way we can transfer wealth, you can move things around, you can have the seamless transactions that you see in a normal real life exchange. For those of you that are out in the world, and even those of you who are still in your bubble, that's fine, because you probably get stuff delivered, and you probably navigated that piece there. So the idea is bringing that convenience, bringing that ease of use up to the actual these actual environments, and using AI and using the metaverse to help that. Things like office hoteling, things like looking at providing a variety of working arrangements that all of us are currently experiencing right now. Some people are remote, some people are have remote off in a few days, other people are having to report, like myself, to the campus every day. So there's like lots of different things that you're seeing. And the nice thing about it is these platforms should be enabling us to have a seamless communication, a seamless way of doing things, a seamless work environment. The other piece to it is making sure we have the ability to edit bad code. So whenever we have bad data, so being able to see what data is being collected on us, being able to choose as users what data we want to share, what data we don't want to share, giving lots of options for that. And of course, with that, we would also have all of the education that comes along to have folks realize what they need to do to protect themselves if they choose to, when it comes to and what's collected on them. So to me, that's kind of what I would see as the ideal, where we have the seamless integration, it makes everyone's quality of life better, and we have the education in place where our users are being able to make choices, their own personal choices, as far as what is being shared and how that's being used.
Okay, then I will take then I will take the next part. And I just put something in chat too. And as I'm describing this, Jerry or Chris, feel free to go look up NVIDIA. So in case people don't know what NVIDIA is. Okay, so for me, the best imaginary would be putting in our students, especially our online students, in these rich virtual worlds and these rich multiplayer role-playing games. That would be that's what I would be, that our students could go to Burning Man in Second Life, that they can go into a simulation that is Dante's Inferno, that our students don't only would take a poem and instead of just analyzing it in text, would instead build like a pocket world based on that poem. That would be my best idea. If anybody knows the movie Ready Player One, the free virtual system in that would be the best imaginary for me. And Facebook and Meta would not be building it. The other part of the best imaginary is I'm going to jump into the data justice field. All of us, including myself, we need to develop something different. And I'm going to introduce a German term. It's called Datenbewusstsein. And it's the best term I've seen so far, meaning that we need to take responsibility to know how our data, images, and informations and actions are being used. And that we also have to advocate and fight for our own digital sovereignty. So for an example of this would be right now with the AI image generators. They scrape the internet. So images you've created on the internet that are public, chances are those AI generators have it in some form. Now, DALL-E has now set up a place where you can go and you can put your username in there, and then they'll take away things that have your username, but it's really obscure. And you have to dig for it, and you have to know a lot about that. So for me, again, it's who's making the profit in these big AI generators. The profit's being made off of us. So my best imaginary would be that we teach students Datenbewusstsein. We don't have them signing up to things that use their data for a business model and for money. And my imaginary really does not assume, like when Jerry put the definitions of liberal versus neoliberal, does not assume that neoliberal companies, for-profit companies, and even not-for-profit companies will be looking out for our best interests. Okay, I think that's something that we as citizens, netsons, avatars, and gamers, we need to assure our own justice. And the best imaginary that I see that I would be excited about is I've already seen it in virtual worlds and massively multiplayer online games. I've seen the best already. I've seen things that were designed that were not possible in real life. And I think that AI, and the link that I put in was to a developer conference from NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, if people aren't familiar with NVIDIA, NVIDIA is a company that their claim to fame were the graphic card for gaming computers. Now they've branched out into microchips and other things, but really what they're considered to be the people who will be the big winners for AI, because everybody now needs their their graphic cards and their other products to be able to run the AI generators. But what they're actually doing is, so they're going past the, write me text. They're going past the generate me, generate an image for me. And they're going, and they're also, what they're doing is considering that these AI generators can write code. These AI generators can write code. So that means that in gaming engines and in virtual worlds, you would be able to bring code in to script what the different characters would do, what the different objects in these virtual spaces can do. NVIDIA's also and again, I know it's a company, but NVIDIA is also looking to how could we use AI to generate scenes? So not just not just the image, not just the text, but how do we do scenes in virtual spaces that look like the best gaming companies? So that's my idea of what the best would be. So Jerry, you're up next.
Okay. So as the voice of doom.
But this is the best. What are you excited about?
Yeah, the best would be for me is like that any of this stuff, all this bright, shiny, great stuff actually came true. Right?
Rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbows and unicorns and raccoons with cakes. Just all the good things. But I think if we look back at the sort of not even the ancient history, even the recent history, our lived history, and we really think back over that time, those decades of technological advancement. I don't know if all of you have been there since the computers, right? Since the dawn of the internet. I know, like Methuselah here. We've lived through these like really exciting times, like the metaverse, right? Now AI and all this like shiny potential. And you think about the times where we hit this moment where there's this big vibe again. What happened then? What happened in the real, right? So for me, the best vision I would have for any of this is that any of that actually became real, like outside of our heads, like in the real world, right? Where, all these ideals, and especially like the fundamental ones, right? So greater autonomy, greater security, greater creativity. For me, it would also be a world where there's greater egalitarian. There's greater egalitarianism, an embrace of diversity, active, like actual individual and collective freedom and liberation and blah, 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 all that stuff, right? Like Ready Player One, like a whole universe of possibilities, and like to have that actually be real off of the computer here in the neoliberal RPG that we play. And so, I think, hopefully, that's what we end up doing with it. I think that's in that vision, I think is a key sort of, is a key and a fundamental thing we wrestle with every single time we come up with this exciting new stuff, is that, something that Kay touched upon. It's like, who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? Who's going to benefit? Is that us? Maybe this time. Who knows? It's very exciting, the possibilities here. But it would be nice if for once, some of this kind of like happened, like out here.
Really?
Like in the real.
Okay.
So there, that's as positive and cheery as I'm gonna get.
Okay, our next question is like, Jerry, you'll have
Oh, the worrisome issues. There might be a few. Okay, so this next compass point question is about concerns one might have about neoliberalism, capitalism, and what sort of like maybe darker possibilities that you might see envision in these developments like AI and the metaverse unfolding into our reality? And Chris, why don't you take that first as our east
Sure.
point,
Well,
our
it's
guiding
interesting.
star?
What's most worrisome for me that I see is that we're relying on a lot for a lot of these new technologies. We're relying on the same companies that have brought us things like Cambridge Analytica, and who are engaging in surveillance capitalism, and who are going ahead and are creating these platforms for they're used to do the freemium type services, or they're using the user data to piece there. So like that's one of the things you're seeing, is that most of these new technologies are being funded by the same people. So Meta is in there behind ChatGPT. Microsoft tossed in, just pocket change, $10 billion behind them to go ahead and use ChatGPT and leverage them to incorporate into its new Azure product that they're going to be rolling out soon. And actually, I think it's out. Version of it's out right now. So the thing is you're using these AIs, you're using the metaverse, you're looking at a way to generate revenue. So how do you generate revenue once all your whenever your seed venture people stop giving you money and you actually have to turn a profit? Where do you get your money from? Because in the end, these companies have to make money. So how are they making their money? And as I mentioned earlier, as other folks have mentioned, is that they're selling user data is a supplementary income stream for them. And for some of them, that's their main income stream. Or what you're seeing advertisement. So that would be fun, that you get the whole Minority Report thing going on, where AI predicts where you're going, feeds you targeted advertisement, and everywhere you go, you're getting bombarded with ads. So it's recognized with you. The other worry I have is some ill-advised or some of the entrees into workforce productivity. So an example is with Microsoft 365, if you are an administrator, you're able to go ahead and implement a managerial feature, shall we say, that will give you a report that on how productive your employees are, and how much they cost you, how much that unproductivity cost you, and how much money the productivity made you, based on their own little calculation. And so with the problem with that is that with Office 365, it only captures the amount of time that you're actually working in the Microsoft Office environment. So it only tracks time that you're working on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, Outlook, any other MS product, and then they're going ahead and creating a forecast of how productive you are based on their proprietary system. But they don't share how that is, and they assume a standard rate of productivity. So how many dollars per hour you should be generating based on your activity, and then they don't necessarily share that either. So you just get an amount. And so what happens is it totally negates things like if you're calling clients, or if you're reading additional information or doing research, different things like that. So that's really sort of what's worrying me, is sort of these great ideas that are ill conceived and ill implemented, and then also folks that just react when they see statistics instead of using those statistics as a talking point, or as let's go ahead and let's start a conversation around what that is, and try to predict that, as opposed to saying, I want one metric so I can just say you're good or bad. And so that's for me what I see. Is what's worrying about some of these upper possibilities going ahead. And that's the thing, is you have a lot of these things that we use that we don't know why things are doing it, but we're like, hey, let's use AI for it. And the thing is we don't know what the AI is. We don't know what variables they're searching on. We don't know what data they're pulling from, whether it's accurate data or bad data. Anytime there's a mistake in the data, as those that have played around with cleaning data and merging databases. There's always errors. And the problem is what type of impact would those errors have on the users? And would these users have the ability to see what's being collected on them and correct errors?
Okay, I'll take worrisome and I'll go fast because Chris is covering a lot, and I know Jerry will also cover a lot because we don't have a lot of time left. Okay, so here's what mine is worrisome: that we're going to get inferior products. I watched Bloomberg News when Wells Fargo said, "Hey, we're in the metaverse. Look at my tiger in my lounge, my metaverse lounge," and the tiger's graphics were awful. Okay, and the scripting on the tiger was awful. I know that, say, in Second Life and other places, we have so much more better product. I'm afraid we're going to get crappy product, and I also feel like businesses are coming to places like the metaverse again, and it won't necessarily improve our space online. I think they're coming. I think they're coming as exploiters. And I think they consider the metaverse and the frontiers that are being opened up by AI. I think they're thinking of it as territory to colonize. And then they're going to charge us for the privilege of participating. So that's what I find worrisome. Jerry?
Okay. You're trying to outdo me here on the dark and bleak. Yeah, the new gold rush. Yeah. Yeah, let me go deeper and darker with that. Okay, Kay offered a nice little push into the abyss, so let's go and jump all in. Yeah, I mean, this is all great, but I think when we look at, again, we think more broadly than inside this like shiny vision, kind of like, okay, how's this gonna get rolled out, right? Who's gonna roll it out? Who's gonna be monitored by that manager and that nifty new metric moment by moment by moment? I think, it's easier then to see the kind of the concern, when we ground ourselves back in the real and ask, well, how have these things kind of rolled out before, and how are they likely to roll out now, and what's likely to be the result? And for me, obviously the main concern is that it just becomes more of the same. It's like now, but worse or better, depending on which end of the resource hierarchy you just happen to be sitting on. There's a lot of promise in all this stuff, obviously, but I think who picks up these tools, right, and puts them to work for whose benefit matters a lot. And we're at a point. Oh, geez, it's this year of 2023. I think we're long past the time in our society where resource constraints, knowledge constraints, technology constraints could explain or justify like all of this. And so I think it would be great if all this sort of like techno utopian vision really unfolded, the shiny part where we're actually included in all that stuff that we sort of imagine as we're going along with this stuff. It would be great if that like happened, but the concern is that it just adds another layer of control, another layer of extraction, kind of building in sort of another layer of the matrix that we're gonna have to fight to like escape from, in our awareness, like break through the pod,
Okay.
comprehend the terror of it all.
Okay, so
Anyway.
we're really short on time, so we'll just do need and nothing other than need. But what do we need to do to keep and create an ethical and just AI in metaverse? Okay, so Chris, you go quick.
Sure. Really quickly, we need to educate the users, our students, ourselves. We need to also make sure these systems have the opportunity to opt out, and opting out does not negatively affect those that opt out. So that's kind of short and sweet.
Okay, so mine is like, be active. Okay, there's a manifesto that's the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace. It's not a bad idea, even though it was written by an old white guy. We can take from it what we need and we need to create it and maintain it. And Chris, just go a couple slides forward, just because I think you have this. Okay.
Yes.
My basic idea is keep the internet weird, create it and maintain it. Make sure we can keep something like that. Don't let them tread on us. And then I guess you can do the last slide, and this is the one I always go. This is not a time to be dismayed. This is punk rock time. This is what Joe Strummer trained you for. So that's my ending part. So Jerry, you get the last word.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna borrow a little bit here by saying, seize the means
Okay.
of production. Take up these tools. I think for us to kind of realize the vision in the real, it's going to take more than just kind of learning the tools. It's going to be trying to figure out how do we apply these tools within, the really hard limits of what we're dealing with, right? Our actual material situation in life. The problems, I think, this problem can be fundamentally solved, but it's going, like any other problems, it's going to take a little bit of thought and work and actual application. So I think that's what fundamentally needs to be done, is that we need to be able to start thinking about the use of these tools and how we can apply them to build this shiny world in the actual, and not just sort of put on the goggles and pretend that we're there. Finn.
And as you can tell, this session did not have a vendor sponsor for it. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
sorry,
totally feral. Sorry.
We have almost no time for questions or anybody else to get on mic. But if you want to, or if you have questions, go ahead.
I'm just going to take 2 seconds and highlight the evaluation link in the chat. We'd love your feedback, but everybody else go.
Even if all you have to say is boo.
Yeah,
Boo.
yeah, like
we will neither sell the data nor feed it to AI.
yes.
That is true. That's our promise. Solemn
it is our
promise
promise.
to you.
I after I give the presenters the feedback, I will delete it.
Mhm.
I will delete it. So it won't exist anymore.
And like for reals, delete, not just like, oh, it's in the trash bin, delete.
Yeah,
like for reals.
I'll empty the trash.
And then destroy the drive.
I like my computer.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll destroy the drive. Okay, everybody.
Okay, so there you go. Come on. I'm kind of hoping we'll see now. Like I'm hoping we're like provocative enough in our provocations, that you're like upset at least, or at least bored in a new way. That would be helpful.
Or you might be slightly sus about some of the new technology.
It's okay.
Yeah,
and the 4 p.m. session we're doing, if we've discussed any paradigms that you think should be questioned, like I said, our 4 p.m. Mountain Time session, that's our close. We'll be discussing those things there. We did it at the morning show, and it was pretty mild at the morning show. They were like, we need to teach learners how to learn. And I'm like, yes. Like
you're the elevator jazz playing.
Faculty need to be able to teach. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then thank you, everybody. We'll be jumping out of this session.
Yes, please go have coffee. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Kay. Chris.